Welcome. My name is George Pearson and I run the How To Gurus channel here on YouTube. Most of the videos in my channel are short demonstrations of the different tools and techniques you'll find in various software programs. Right now I have several hundred of these quick videos available on YouTube. This video though is different. This is part of a new series of longer demonstrations that I'm doing to show you how to complete complex projects from start to finish using a variety of techniques and tools. All of the images I use in these projects are in the public domain, and I've included a link to the pictures in the video description in case you want to work along using the same images. Okay, let's move on to the project. In this special Photoshop Elements tutorial, we're going to be doing some posterization effects. We'll start off with a simpler one over here, kind of an Andy Warhol-ish kind of a look, not really exactly, but kind of like an Andy Warhol thing, and then doing a more advanced one over here. Now there is a posterize filter inside of Photoshop Elements, but it doesn't give you a whole lot of control over the posterization. What we'll be doing here will give you complete control over the posterization, so you can do it exactly the way that you want, choosing the specific colors that you want to have and so forth. Now we'll do this one second. It's the more complex of these two. We'll start off with this one over here first. So let me just get this out of our way. We'll bring that back up again later. We're starting off with this image here, and as you can see we have 4 copies. So the first thing we need to do is to expand this into, make this canvas size larger than this one. And let's just get this out of the way. So I'm going to first make a copy of this. Actually, just make this into a regular layer. Double click where it says background and choose OK. Makes it a regular layer. Let's put a new layer behind that. There we are. We can then fill that layer with whatever you want to fill it with, or just leave it as is. Now we're going to increase the size of our image. So let's go up here to Image and Resize. I want to make the canvas itself bigger. Right now it's 10 inches wide by 11 inches tall. So if we make it 20 by 22, that will be twice as big and twice as tall. Let's leave the girl bottom left hand corner, so I'll use that as our anchor point, bottom left hand corner right there, and let's check our size. So 20, 22. Canvas extension color is white. That's fine. Choose OK. And there we go. So we've now expanded the canvas, and we have one copy of her bottom left hand corner. We now can fill this background, and we'll fill it with white. It'll just give us something to work against. It doesn't really matter what you have back there. We'll be putting in new background layers as we go. We also can come in here and set in the center points with guidelines. There's one right there, and here's a guideline right down there. That will help us just position things. So we have our guidelines set in with our centers, one image. Let's fill the background layer. So I'll go up here to Window, bring our color swatches up, choose white, and then Paint Bucket, fill. There we are. Okay, now we're going to convert this into a black and white image, and we want something which is just straight black or white. Actually, there's going to be dividing that between those two values, black and white, and we'll be then removing the white, leaving us a clear. And you do that with this filter up here, filter adjustments and threshold right there. What this does is it allows you to choose where the image shifts from black to white. So it's a matter then of pulling this control handle over like that until you have the look that you want. I think just a little bit of the shadow under the chin showing, not too much, it gets too dark. Just a little bit, looks like right now 56, 61 maybe. I think a little lighter, I think 57. You can also type in a number here. Let's try 52. That's not enough. We'll try 55. Okay, that was pretty good, but I want a little bit of chin showing in here, but not too much. I want to keep it relatively light. Let's take a look at 57. Okay, I think that's pretty good. Choose OK. So now if you look at that, we have white and black. We can now delete the white out of this using the magic wand, and let's adjust our settings down here. Contiguous, uncheck contiguous. What this means is where I click, it's going to grab anything which matches where I click and is touching. We want to get rid of all of the white, so if you uncheck contiguous, that's fine. Tolerance won't matter on this one. Just click someplace in here. There is everything, and then hit the delete key, and it removes all of that white. Hit it again, and that just deselects. So there we go. There's all of that removed. Now if we zoom in, you'll see that even where it looks like there's some gray, it's pretty much pure white except like right around the pixels in there. So that's looking good. You can adjust that if you want to by increasing the contrast of this image, or leave it alone. It depends upon what your goal is on that. But for us, we can leave it as is. That's not going to be hurting us at all on this particular demo. So there we have our first image. We now want 4 of these, 1 in each corner. So let's take this, pull this up to the new layer button right there, and let's just drag that over. Actually, both of those are selected. Let me just undo that move. Just one copy selected. There we go. Pull that over, and a little bit of position adjustment here with the mouse to get that right position. That's good. Let's do another one of those, and we'll just move this up. I'm going to be just using the cursor keys this time, the arrow keys, and just move this straight up to the top. And I'm watching the bounding box on this. Make sure that it just goes right to the top edge. Actually, I want the bottom edge. Now that I look at that, against that bottom line. There we go. Okay, same thing. Make another one of these. Use the arrow keys, and let's move this over to the left-hand side so it stays exactly lined up. Then the bounding box on the right-hand side, you can just barely see it. I want that right on that guideline. Okay, so far so good. We have our top 2 and our bottom 2. We now need to put in new layers in between each one of these, in behind each one. So I'll come right down here, new layer there, come in here, new layer, up here, new layer. So there's a layer beneath that, a layer beneath that, and then one beneath there. There we go. So each one has a layer beneath it now. That's where we're going to be putting in our background color. It doesn't matter what color you use at this point. We can always change our colors. So I'll just grab primaries. We'll adjust the color later. Color swatches, and I'm going to use just some lighter colors in here for this. It's a bit easier to see. So we'll do that yellow, and let's just leave that right there so we can get back to it easily. Grab the rectangular marquee tool, make sure at the very bottom, and I'm going to draw a marquee right here and let it just snap to those 2 guidelines and snap to the side. Grab the paint bucket and fill that with that yellow color. Okay, let's come up to the next one right here. That's this image, right hand side. Same thing. I'm going to start from this guideline, let the marquee snap to the guidelines. Let's fill this, and let's just choose, it says pure green. That looks fine. Fill that. There we are. Let's go up to this next layer. That's going to be this image right there, right beneath that. So let's pull our image up. Let me just change a few things here. Let's just deselect that. I'm going to scroll that up. There we go. Same thing, come right onto the guideline and then pull up and let it snap to the sides and snap to the guidelines. Let's give this one a blue coloration. I'll choose that one. Paint bucket. There it is. Now let's do the last one. That's this layer right here. And let's find something else, maybe kind of a a softer purple color, like that one right there. That's fine. Same thing, grab the selection tool, come right down to the guideline here, draw that in and let it snap to the guides and to the edge, back to the paint bucket, and fill. And then deselect. So that gives us our colors for the background. Now, because we have a background coloration of white down here, if you want to lighten these up, let's close it out right now. If you want to lighten these up, it's simply a matter of bringing down the opacity on that, and you see a little bit of a transparency showing. That's fine because it's going to just look as if it's a lighter color because of that white in the background. Once we show the white, there we go. So you can adjust the values here easily by adjusting the opacity. So we now have control on those values. Maybe just a little bit of adjustments to get them kind of all in the same range. This is just a visual thing. I think that's pretty good. Looking good so far. We now want to change the color of the people in here, change the color of the girl. Let's come down here, bottom left hand corner. We'll do her first, and we'll do this with a hue saturation shift. So enhance, adjust color, hue saturation, and then simply colorize. Now that converts this to a color image, but we'll need to lighten that up to see that color shift. There's the color. And then simply choose a color that you like from this slider over here. And this will be that looks interesting against that yellow background. You can bring your saturation up if you want to have, a firmer color in there, and just adjust these settings until you get something which you like. I think kind of a avant-garde coloration right there is kind of fun. That's good. Let's now move to this next one up here. Same exact thing. Enhance, adjust color, hue saturation, colorize. Lighten that up so the color is showing. A little more saturation maybe, and then bring the color around until you have something which you like against that color. I think kind of a bluish thing looks good in here. There we go. Let's now do our top two. So you can see it's actually pretty easy to do this. The technique is pretty easy, you just need to know the right steps. Okay, this is upper right hand corner. Same thing. Enhance, adjust color, hue saturation, colorize. Lighten that up so we begin to see the color. Bring our saturation up a little bit. And let's find some interesting color in here, maybe kind of a greenish thing. Might be fun. Something like that. And then our final layer, top layer here. Again, same thing, enhance, adjust color, adjust hue saturation, colorize. Bring the lightness up so you can see the color, and then shift the color around until you find what you like. Bring the saturation up a little bit, and then simply at that point adjust your values. Okay, there's the basic colorization. Let's now, just for a little bit of an additional look, we'll put in a bit of a glow around these, and that's going to be using a layer style. So layer style, style settings, glow, and we'll do an outer glow. And the size here, as you can see, kind of gives you a little bit of a glowing effect. And we'll bring the opacity down a bit. Choose OK. So there's our little layer style. Now if you right click on this, you can come down here and choose copy layer style. Let me see if I can get that show a little bit better. There we go. Copy layer style. Come down to our next layer, right click, paste layer style. Then our next layer, right click, and it's off screen someplace, so we can find that. Paste layer style, there it is. and then right click. It's just off screen, paste layer style. You can't see that one, of course, because we're on such a light background. Now once you have the styles in, you can then modify your styles. Double click on the FX, and here you can come in and actually adjust things individually. Let's just change this to a white, so we have some differential here between the yellow. I'll bring the opacity up. Now we can begin to see some of that lightness in there. And there we go. There's the first basic Warhol look. The main thing I want you to take from this, though, is that threshold technique that we got this image on. We'll be using that on the next picture. Okay, I'll just go ahead and save this one. And let's just bring our girl back up again. There we go. And we'll zoom in a little bit on this. Now do something a little more complex this time. Same basic idea, but I want to have 4 levels of posterization for this image. So first thing I'll be doing is making a copy of my background like that. Just have a little safety in here. Let's put a new layer. That's in case I mess things up. I can always go back to my original. New layer. Let's fill the layer with white. So let's check our swatches. And white. There we go. Paint bucket, fill. And that's good. Now we're not going to be resizing the image this time. There's no need to. But we are going to be using 4 copies again. So I'm just going to double click this one, and I'll call it girl. That's fine. Drag one up. There's 1 copy. Drag it up again. 2nd copy and 3rd copy. So I have 4 of those. Let's now hide these. Then our first one, and we're going to be doing that same threshold effect on this. Filter, adjustments, threshold. Now notice as I pull this over to the right side, I'm seeing a lot of my dark areas become black. You see there's the dark areas here, the hair and so forth. They become black. If I pull this to the right, we're refining that more and more to just the light areas of the image. So I want to have the dark areas on the bottom one, kind of dark mid-tone, lighter mid-tone, and then light areas. That's what our basic approach is. So I'll go clear to the right-hand side. Leave a little bit of stuff showing. I think that's pretty good. 172 in this case. Choose OK. That's my first one. Let's hide that. Come to our second one. Filter, adjustments, threshold. So we're like right in here somewhere. Let's come about halfway down. I think right here someplace is pretty good. Choose OK. That's my second one. Up to our 3rd layer. Filter, adjustments, threshold. Let's bring this further down like that. Choose OK. Hide that. And our 4th layer. Filter, adjustments, threshold, and let's bring that a lot further in there. Now the nice thing about this technique is that you can always come back and do a new threshold if you need to make an adjustment in between one of these. If you want to have an additional layer or something else, just make note of your threshold numbers. You can then come back and do those. Now we want to delete the background again, so using our magic wand, these settings should still be the same. Contiguous, unselected, everything else is fine. Click and delete. There we go, and then we'll just deselect. Let's come down to our next one. And let's just undo that, make sure we're on the right layer. There we go. Click delete. That's fine. Select deselect. Come down to the next layer. Click delete. And deselect. Final layer. The white again. Click and delete. And deselect. Okay, so we now have these 4 layers in here of this girl, all one on top of another. We're now ready to add color into these separated layers. Just like we did in our previous demonstration, we're going to be using the hue saturation to do that. Now let's analyze the image. The darkest thing in the image was the hair, and that's right here. So this should be our darkest color. And then we're going to be going progressively lighter as we go down. So we'll start up here. Actually, I'm going to start down here. Let's do a real light color for this lever. You can kind of see it on the background as well. Our darkest colors are up here, right there, and it gets progressively lighter. So we'll use this one. We want this just a little bit darker than the white in the background. Enhance, adjust color, hue saturation, and colorize. Bring our lightness up. You can bring the saturation up if you want to. Find a nice color. I think something in the tans is going to bring that up so it's fairly light in there. And just kind of playing around with the values till I get what I like. Okay, there's our first step. The next one is a little bit darker. So enhance, adjust color, hue saturation, colorize. Bring that up. Let's adjust our hue over so it looks correct. A little more saturation possibly on that. And a little lighter. Looks pretty good. Next one's a little darker still. Same thing, enhance, adjust color, adjust hue, saturation, and colorize. Bring the lightness up. You can see it. There it is. Let's adjust our colors. So we're in the right color range. A little more saturation in here. I think that looks pretty good. Now, you can leave the final layer black if you want to, or give it some color. It's up to you how far you want to push that. I'm going to put a little bit of color into this, but not too much. Enhance, adjust color, hue saturation, same thing. Colorize, bring up a little bit of color in there. Let's adjust the values, a little more saturation, and that looks pretty good. So there's our basic colorization on this, doing that basic look. Now if you want that kind of interesting border thing in the background, you can do that by just doing a border on your image, on your anything you want to have on your background. You can do that, and you can actually blend these into that background if you're so inclined. Let's just take a look at the original, and that'll bring the original back up again. And there we go. There's this coloration in there. Now I collapsed that layer down here previously, so let's take a look at this without the collapsed layer effect on that. Let's just get that out of there. So we'll doing that kind of a colorization, and on that one I put a bit of a transparency on the bottom layer of the girl here so you can see a little bit of that showing through. So what you want to have now is a couple of layers in here. We're then going to colorize those layers. So I'm going to grab the guidelines here, and I'm just going to kind of eyeball the positions on this. That's about where I want my first colorization on that. Let's do another set. My second one I want a little bit larger. So that's in here someplace. Kind of like that. That's what I'm looking for. Now we're going to be putting in a new white layer on the inside here, then applying a stroke onto that to give me this color, and then colorizing the back layer, which is that outside color. So that's our approach. So let's make a new layer. There it is. And let's select this inside. just like that. And now we can fill this. We'll fill it with white, so look at our color swatches, and we'll choose white. Paint bucket and fill that. There's the white fill. Now I can't see it because it's behind everything else. So I'm going to just hide all this stuff at the moment. So there's our white fill. Now we're going to be applying a stroke onto this white fill. And to have that hard edge stroke, you'll need to do this from the effects. So bring the effects up and choose one of these strokes up here. I'll use that one right there. Double click, and that gives us that stroke. And the reason why I'm using this is because these strokes are hard edge. If you go up here to layer styles and do it from the layer style settings here, you're going to get a soft edge stroke. So you want to be using the hard edge strokes from the effects menu. Get back to our layers. Let's now adjust that. Double click on the FX, brings that up. Position is outside. We can adjust that size out like that. Anything that you want on this. Change your color here. Any color you feel like having. I think I'll go for kind of a something in that range. And choose OK. There's our background image. I can make it a little wider. I didn't go quite as wide as before. That's fine. We'll leave it as is. Let's bring the transparency down a little bit here so we can see that through. There we go. 71, 75% in there somewhere, so you're just seeing that through. Now if I bring the rest of these up, you can see how they hide that effect except for that one transparent area. Now I have this spot right down here. We'll fix that a little bit in just a second. That's one more additional layer in there. You actually just come in here and fill that spot with white on this layer if you wanted to, but we'll do it on its own layer. Okay, so that's looking good. Let's now get the next coloration. Two ways to approach that. One way is just to fill this background layer with the color. I'll show you both techniques. Let's just make a new layer here. Hide that. Bring our color swatches back up again. Let's give this one kind of a darker blue this time. And fill. And that just fills that area. So that's one technique. Other technique is to do a stroke on this one. Same layer, effects. I'll choose the same stroke. Back to our layers again. Double click to bring the effects up. Let's change this to inside instead of outside. And let's find a nice dark blue again. And then adjust the size. You can see how the inside now allows me to have that control. So I can even do a double edge if I wanted to. So there's that inside. Now notice how this inside has a hard edge corner. And when we did the outside, we had a rounded corner. That rounded corner automatically is applied inside of elements. If you want to have a sharp corner on this one, then simply set your white rectangle to your outer border and give it an inside stroke as opposed to an outside stroke, because the inside stroke will have a sharp corner on that. I'm going more for kind of a 70s look this time. Choose OK. So there's our kind of border showing in. Let's now take care of this problem right down there. This one's easy. Come down to this layer, let's make a new layer above that. Let's change our color to white. There we go. And grab our marquee. I'll do a little marquee just like that, and let's fill that with white. There it is. So we just replace that white down there so we're not seeing this stuff showing through, and we're seeing the white that was there originally. And there it is. There is the more complex style. Let's hide those guidelines. There we are. Here's our more complex style. The nice thing about doing this technique, there's a lot of steps on this on the posterization, of course, but the nice thing about this is that I can go back now and I can adjust any of these colors. I made this a little more naturalistic color than my preview that we did, which is a little brighter colors. But I can change these colors at any point. I can also easily do a new level if I want to. If I'm not really happy where this level is, I can come in and just do a new level using the same technique. Make a copy of this layer, use the filter adjustments threshold on that, and make a new threshold and do the same thing again with a little different setting. For instance, you can see that the separation in here is not exact. I may want to pull it in a little bit right down there. If I had taken the time to write my numbers down on my threshold, I would then know which number was exactly between these two numbers. It would then give me that right in the middle. So you can be very controlled on this technique, much better than on the posterization filter that comes with Photoshop Elements. That gives you almost no control. You can do posterization effects, but there's very little control on that posterization effect. This gives you complete control over your posterization effects. And while I'm looking at this, I think I'll bring up the opacity a little bit on that layer, just a touch. That looks better. Okay, there we go. That's how to do these fancy, totally controllable posterization techniques, and it all has to do with using that threshold filter. Let's just show you where that is again. I'll just click there, filter, adjustments, and threshold right there. Thank you for watching this special Photoshop photography project video. Don't forget to subscribe so that you will get first notice of new project videos in the future. Just click on this link right here where it says subscribe here. You can get all 12 project videos in this series along with 26 special videos demonstrating the tools and techniques that I used in these projects by clicking on this link right down here. And then thank you again for watching this training video.